Are you ready for rapid fire?
I am ready for rapid fire.
Let's do it then. And we're going to start off with this. We've been talking a lot about the running backs. Fill in the blank. Notre Dame's leading rusher this season will be blank.
Notre Dame's leading rusher this season will be Audric Estime. I think Audric Estime is the perfect, for how their offense is run. When Estime starts, when you have running backs who share loads like this, and you can pound Estime like you can in the fourth quarter, I believe that Estime will take kind of the lead here. I think that defenses get worn down with an already physical attack. With the offensive linemen and the consistent pounding of the ball. And by the time the fourth quarter rolls around, that's prime Estime time. So as long as he doesn't fumble, I think Estime is going to be the lead back just because of his powerful downhill running later in the game.
Tyler is right there with you. As of right now, Estime has 70 carries for 442 yards. Diggs has 75 for 349. So he's a little more than 100 yards behind with 5 more carries. He started slower, though, because he was running more against Ohio State. Chris Tyree, 70 for 308. Really, what I think this comes down to, and I mean, I think we all love Audric Estime and just, what he is able to do, but he's got to hold on to the football. I don't think it would be as close as it is right now. I don't think Diggs would have had his 28 carries for 130 yards if Estime doesn't fumble for the third time in 4 games. And now, as Vince said yesterday, the first one was when he was reaching out for the goal line against North Carolina. So do you really count that? I don't know. But maybe it's gotten in his head a little bit. And that's what I'm worried about with him right now. Is it in his head? And the way Logan Diggs is running, can he catch him? And that's what I'm trying to balance right now. And at least for the short term, we're going to see less of Audric Estime until he proves that he can hold on to the football. And the way Diggs is running right now, really like it. So I'm going to say Diggs just edges him out. Like if everything went the way the formula was going, where you're using Diggs, you're using Tyree, and then you're mixing in some Estime, and then in the fourth quarter, all of a sudden, here comes the sledgehammer, and you're pounding with Audric Estime, I would have no doubt that it's going to be him. But there's just enough doubt right now because of the fumble issue. So I'm going to go with Diggs just overtaking him when they come down the home stretch. All right. I just saw a super chat, and since it's a super chat, you're going to have to answer to this. ND Nation says, Reese is smart. Please explain. Thanks.
Tommy Reese is smart, but like a lot of smart people, he gets in his own way with kind of getting too smart and overcomplicating.
Yes. Sometimes you can be too smart for your own good.
And that is his issue right now. You and I have talked about it a lot, and I'll just say it again. He just needs to simplify down to his base on what works and then use all of his other concepts and fun ideas off of his kind of foundation and base of things that work. Yes, Tommy Reese is a smart guy. He's just too smart and he's overcomplicated. He's gone. I think he's getting too cute and too complicated and trying too many things of what could potentially work rather than sticking to what he knows works and what he knows his team does well. So for me, that is kind of my answer to that question. He's just too smart for his own good.
Man's got to know his limitations. That's right, Salty. Okay, so kind of on that subject, Jess, when asked about Mitchell Evans' run plays against UNLV, Michael Mayer, after the UNLV game, said, Irish offensive coaches will come in all the time with plays they see in NFL games, and then they try many of them out in practice. And that was kind of the, origin of the Mitchell Evans, the Travis Kelce, Kansas City Chiefs tight end play. So what do you think about that?
It just kind of feeds into what we were talking about. Like at this point in the season, I feel like you really shouldn't be introducing too many crazy concepts. Like, am I okay with the fourth down play where the tight end comes in motion and, comes under center and does the QB sneak like that? Sure. That's just a quarterback sneak, except Drew Pine is a small quarterback. Who's running a quarterback sneak with Drew Pine? It's a very efficient play when you have a bigger body. Like Jacoby Brissett for the Browns is like 32 of 34 at QB sneaks. It's not because he's a good quarterback. It's just because he's a big body and he's hard to tackle. And so, I'm okay with that kind of stuff of, the smaller things, like the wrinkles, like the play. Here's what I tell you all the time. I feel like an offensive coordinator going into every week should have 2 to 3 plays that they have never shown before, that's inside the 10-yard line, that is guaranteed to get you a touchdown, like the Philly special, or the Statue of Liberty, whatever play it is.
And Tommy has to have them as much as he, as big as his playbook is. He's got many of those he could break out at any given time.
Right. So I'm okay with having, these maybe like 2 or 3 plays per week that you haven't shown yet, that are maybe, some kind of out there concepts, but those are kind of like your trick plays, or your plays that, you're just showing for when you need a touchdown, or something like that. So, it's pick and choose. And I know that's a crappy answer, but I just think when you're running, it shouldn't affect your everyday offense. It should be your kind of, you're throwing your wrinkles offense, like stuff that teams haven't seen, stuff that's not on film. And again, stuff where you need a touchdown, and you want to show, run something that'll catch the other team off guard.
Yeah. You can spend a 10-minute period, work, or a 5-minute period or whatever, working on a play like this or whatever, as long as it doesn't consume the time that you need to be spending to get your offense working. And and I guess that's what, like, hearing this, and it's like, oh yeah, coach shows up, they've been watching NFL games, and they show up and they see this play, and we try to run it. It sounds cool because, like, especially from the college player's point of view, it's like, ooh, we saw this in the NFL. So you kind of get, it's got a little cachet to it, so the players are going to buy in. Well, Travis Kelce could do this, so let's see if Mitchell Evans can do this. And I don't necessarily mind that because, again, like a short yardage situation, they needed something and Drew Pine had to go out. It was ready to go. They were able to go in and run it. It got him a first down one time, and it got him a touchdown the next time. You just don't want to be spending too much time on this kind of stuff when your offense is broken the way it is. And the offense is broken right now. More time needs to be spent on actually running the offense and doing things that work on a consistent basis. So that's what kind of struck me about it. Like how much of these plays are actually kind of, how many they're doing them in any given week. I don't know, but I just don't think you want to be spending too much time on that kind of stuff.
You don't want to add saturation, I think is
that's
the
right.
best way to put it.
The whole keep it simple, right? Like just like what you were saying, you need to have those plays you can pull out of your bag when you're down there in the red zone, and that would help them be a better red zone team because they stink in the red zone right now too. But you need a solid base of plays. Like, what is your offense? Nobody knows the idea. Well, the identity they want for this offense is obviously power running football team, but that's not working right now. Not consistently anyway.
Right.
All right. NBC has had an alum of the opposing team, as well as a Notre Dame alum, take part in their pregame, halftime, and postgame shows this season. So Saturday, it was former UNLV quarterback Kenny Mayne of ESPN fame on the broadcast. And, again, like whenever NBC has had the game, they've had someone from the other side. And maybe you've been able to watch a little bit of this more than me. I don't know how much of it you've seen. Do you buy or sell this opposing team angle to NBC's Notre Dame broadcast?
I really don't mind. I think it's kind of, it adds another, dimension to it. I get it that it's an NBC product, so it's a Notre Dame product, but it's nice to have someone from the other side, especially when these kind of big, like UNLV, but when you have a bigger game, against having, when you have larger opponents at home and you get to bring in, it's just another side of another perspective, right? It lends to thinking about things in different ways. And so for me, I just really enjoy that they have, the different side. It could be they could be all Notre Dame if they want to, but the fact that they bring in, a Notre Dame alum and a visiting school alum, I just think it makes it more fun. It makes it more diverse. I never knew Kenny Mayne was a quarterback for UNLV, so it's just I
didn't either until they started talking about him.
Something you learn. So for me, I enjoy it. I know, like I said, I know other people might not like it because it's it's the NBC, it's the Notre Dame product. But yeah, it is better than having them in the booth, a la Breeze and what was the other one? Flutie.
I didn't get to see any of the Kenny Mayne
And it's not even like it's a large
But
segment. They just briefly kind of cut to it
right.
before the game. It's a very small kind of, pregame 5-minute at most segment.
Oh, so We're Not Marshall says he was there with Randall Cunningham. I didn't realize that. But again, I didn't get to see the broadcast. But I guess the only thing, like I did see the BYU thing, and one, like that was when Manti Te'o was there, out there for the Shamrock series. One, I had no idea who the BYU guy was. And then they've got him out there in the post game, and it's like this guy from BYU and Manti and the regular reporter, and they're interviewing Michael Mayer out there. Well, what's the BYU guy gonna say? He just it's like it just seemed that part of it seemed very awkward to me. I get what they're trying to do because again, NBC has always had this thing to them, like to Notre Dame fans, it's supposed to be a Notre Dame broadcast for the most part, but to NBC, it's a national broadcast that happens to be Notre Dame. And they're trying to kind of play both sides of this, and they're working in the angle. Like Kenny Mayne has, he's a funny guy. So I'm sure that whatever he was doing, there was some entertainment value to it, at least to some extent. So I don't mind it. And I think it was Stymie who said, yeah, it's better than having them in the booth. Just what you were saying, Jess. Better than having these guys in the booth like Breeze or Flutie. And it's like, that's what always amazed me is the fact that not only are you not having a Notre Dame guy in the booth, you've got a Purdue guy and you've got a Boston College guy, and then Mayock is a Boston College guy, even though a lot of people, including myself, like Mayock. But it's very odd the way they've gone about their business and putting these booths together over the years. And I saw a whole lot of Jason Garrett bashing and Jack Collinsworth bashing over the weekend as well.
Jack deserves it. I had some preconceived notions of what Jason Garrett would be, and I've been pleasantly surprised. I think he does a great job. He's very factual, informational. He's not overboard. I just really think Jason Garrett does a pretty solid job, and there's no bias. He just kind of tells you how it is. He tells you, what Notre Dame should be doing and the things that they do well. And he gets frustrated when they don't do them. And I think that that's kind of everyone else. It's like he sees it week in and week out. And it's like, well, why aren't you doing the stuff that works for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think, he's an Ivy League guy with an predominantly NFL background. And I agree with Stymie. What I have heard of Garrett, I think Jason Garrett does a really good job of explaining what's going on the field. I think being around Notre Dame, assuming he keeps doing this for a few more years, he'll get better with familiarity and, some of the things that he's talking about regarding Notre Dame specifically. But the only thing I don't want to hear about from Jason Garrett, because again, like X and O, why a play failed, why it succeeded, the X and O's of the plays, I think Jason Garrett does a really good job without being overly technical, which is sometimes what Drew Brees, I thought, could get into. Maybe there was too much, and that's definitely, it's literally why Mike Mayock didn't have a job before he moved on to the NFL, was because he talked in too technical terms. NBC kept telling him, stop being so technical because you're talking to a large audience of grandmas and moms and, beyond just diehard football people, and he wouldn't do it. And that's literally why Mike Mayock was gone. But I think Jason Garrett does a good job of that. The only thing I don't want to hear from Jason Garrett is game strategy stuff, because you and I know very well the stupidity of many of Jason Garrett's.
Well, it's funny because I honestly,
strategy.
He contradicts himself compared to what he did as an NFL coach. It's really weird because it's like, you say these things, but like did analytics just hit you? Like what were you doing while as a coach? Because all the time it seems like he's like, yeah, I'd go for it here if I was Marcus Freeman. And like he never went for it with the Cowboys.
You never went for it. Jason Garrett was famous for, okay, we start at our own 20. We march across the 50. We march across the 40. We're inside the 30. Now we're going to downshift because we're in field goal range, and I don't want to risk missing the field goal. So I'm more willing to settle for a field goal than I am in taking a couple of chances going for a touchdown. That was like the Jason Garrett offensive philosophy by and large, and it was so frustrating. And you're right, like to hear him say, "Oh, I'd go for it." No, you wouldn't, because as you said, You never went for it. That was like the only good thing that came out of Mike McCarthy's first year was like he went for it a couple of times, even if he didn't always make it. It's like, well, we got somebody who'll go for it on fourth down. It was different. Fill in the blank, Jess. It's blank that Jim Nantz will be stepping away from calling March Madness after this year's tournament, and Ian Eagle will be taken over as the lead TV announcer.
It is disheartening that Jim Nantz is taking a step away. He's obviously iconic for the March Madness and everything that he brings to college basketball, and it just enhances the product and the viewer experience. So at the end of the day, and that's nothing against Ian, but I think that he can potentially step up and do what he needs to do. But for me, it's just I enjoy listening to him. When you think of March Madness and college basketball, that's kind of one of the things that you think of. So definitely disheartening to see him go, but hopefully it's you never know what the reason might be, or when it does come out, hopefully it is something. It's a better opportunity for him.
Yeah, I agree, and like I enjoy him more doing March Madness than I do the NFL now. I feel like it's kind of been up and down with that Romo booth. Like they were doing the game the other day, and like there were some questionable angles they were going with in that Cowboys Lions game that I found a little bit surprising. But it's that booth sounds just a little bit more disjointed than it was early on. But he's been so great at basketball for so long, doing all the Final Fours and March Madness and everything else. But he also doesn't call a whole lot of college basketball other than when it comes to tournament time. And I guess he's doing this for family stuff. He's going to, step back so we can have more time with the family. He's still going to do the Masters, still going to do football and all that stuff. So he'll be around, but it's going to be different. Ian Eagle, he's an East Coast guy. I know a lot of people love him. I guess maybe because I don't hear him as much. I think he's really good, but he's not one of my favorites. But so it's going to be a different sound to get used to. He definitely, like, there were some calls that he had last year where he was kind of getting in some of the zingers and that kind of stuff. So I don't know. It's going to be different. It's going to be a lot different for sure. I think I'll miss Jim Nantz. So got one more go around. D Hawk was commenting on Jason Garrett, says he doesn't know what targeting is, and that's what I heard. Like he
this
was
is a very
saying,
accurate comment by D Hawk.
he was saying that the Drew Pine thing was not targeting, I guess, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is shocking to me. Again, having just watching the replays, I just and he says he has no clue who the players are or what they've done. He does understand plays and strategy. D-Hawk says Jack worked as a sideline guy, but play-by-play struggles. Not much play-by-play experience at all. Derek wants to hire Dan Orlovsky. That might take a lot of money to do that. I mean, NBC's going to have to hire some more play-by-play and analysts here when they start adding these Big Ten games anyway. So I'll be curious to see how they, kind of what directions they go with that. They're going to have to add a stable of some more people. Both the NLCS and the ALCS just concluded Sunday. World Series isn't going to start, though, until Friday. Should they be starting today instead of waiting almost a week to get the World Series started?
No, I believe that you plan for 7 games, and that's a team earns those days off by winning 4-1 and sweeping another opponent. I know it sucks, but to me, you've earned those days off, and I more so would like to see all of the pitching kind of rested up, and we get the best performance once the World Series starts. So I don't mind it. I think that it's scheduled that way, and like I said, they earned it by the Astros sweeping the highly paid frauds of the New York Yankees, and the Phillies kind of handling their business against the Padres. So for me, like I said, they've earned that time off. I know it sucks that we have to wait, and it seems kind of stupid, but they can't predict that a sweep would happen and another series would end in 4-1. So for those reasons, I'm okay with it because they earned it by sweeping another team. They played that much better. And they get the reward of resting, and most importantly, their pitchers get to rest.
Yeah, and I get that, and I've seen a lot of people, talking about why don't they just start right now? To me, it would be great if they could because they're going to start on Friday night. Okay, high school football Saturday, then you've got college football. They're going to go into the weekend. I think it goes 2 and then a day off. So it's like you go up against football, I guess is my point, on the weekend. And that makes it tougher when there's nothing going on these next few days. So it would be great. I understand, you got TV involved, network TV and all that stuff. You can't just change the network TV schedules and all that stuff so easily. But I think it would be great if they could. It's really more convenience than anything. So, because it's like, it'd be great to have a World Series game to watch tonight instead of, I don't know, whatever is on.
It looked like, yeah, there we go. We got thrown a nice question here.
We got a super chat. So David says, let me ask this. When it comes to targeting and the offensive player lowers his head helmet, is that fair?
Absolutely not. I think when a defensive player, and this is obviously biasy on my end, I'm a defensive player, but when a defensive player starts his tackle or starts, the fundamentals are breaking down into tackling form, you can't account for what the runner is going to do with their head or helmet. And so if I've started the process of my tackle and the offensive player lowers their helmet, then absolutely I don't think that that's fair, because I've started my tackle, and the runner has put himself in a bad situation by lowering their head or helmet. So for me, I'm okay with seeing, when's the last time we saw an offensive, targeting or head to head.
Oh, I know.
Those are need to be taken into consideration, because too many times you see these shorter players kind of put their heads down, and to finish off these runs, and it's really not fair to the defensive player who's already kind of has to deal with, the ramifications that come with targeting, and really trying to make sure, be conscious of where they're placing their head. And obviously that comes down to good fundamentals. But at the end of the day, I just don't think that a defensive player should be compromised after starting the process of their tackle.
Right. I mean, the biggest thing, because you're reacting as a defensive player, you have to react to what the other person is doing. And like you said, you can't anticipate where the other guy is going to run, let alone what his head level is going to be and all these other things. The biggest thing that you want from a defensive player is just that you're not leading with your helmet. I think that is the intent of this, not only to protect the offensive player, but to protect the defensive players as well, and try to cut down on the neck and, spinal cord injuries and stuff like that, making sure you're not leading with the crown of your helmet, especially. And like Marcus Freeman said the other day, when you look at the way JD Bertrand has made these plays, like the first one, he definitely, was like launching himself upwards into a receiver, a defenseless receiver, after the ball had already been gone. There was no reason for him to do it. But the other two, the North Carolina play and the play this past week against UNLV, he's leading with this face mask. Like the UNLV player, again, like the UNLV player with the hit on Drew Pine, he's leading with the crown of his helmet. I don't know how that doesn't even get looked at for instant replay. But again, that wasn't the question. The bigger question was, is it fair? No, it's not fair, because you've got different sizes and shapes of these players, and the defensive players have to react to them, and you can't predict how where a guy's head is going to be when the play is over.
I liked the follow-up. Does the defensive player get trucked because the offensive player becomes a battering ram? Those, as a linebacker, those are the hardest running backs to tackle. Those guys who just put their helmets down, get low, and essentially spear you. Like, I remember taking spears to the chest from this running back that was just like, he was just a muscle ball, and he was so low, and he would just like headbutt you every time. And it wasn't fun, but every time you just had to get in there and just kind of stand.
Hamster.
Yeah, you just had to like stand your ground and just kind of know what was coming. It was more of like the fall back and wrap and kind of roll with it, right? Because you knew you weren't going to get necessarily lower than that guy, and just the overall strength. That's like the least favorite scenario when tackling someone, is when you have a real strong guy who just lowers his head and gets low, because you can't really do much. You don't have much leverage to get up and underneath.
All right, last question tonight. Fill in the blank. It's blank that the Yankees mental skills coach showed Yankees highlights, or showed this current Yankees team highlights from the 2004 Red Sox comeback win over the Yankees in the 2004 ALCS to try to motivate them when they were trailing the Astros 3-0 in the ALCS.
It's disgraceful for the Yankees. The last thing you want to be remembered of is when you blew a 3-0 series lead. I'm okay with maybe showing some highlights from the season of guys who might be struggling and be like, hey, these are the things that you're capable of. Just go out there, have fun. But when you bring up bad memories, especially against your number one rival, and obviously you losing that, you didn't go to the World Series. That guy should be fired. I think he should no longer be the social skills coach. That's like the
How do you
last
get that
video
job?
that you want to bring up as a Yankees personnel.
I mean, they might as well have said, "Hey, Dave Roberts, why don't you come give a motivational speech?" Of course, Dave Roberts was the guy that stole the base in Game 4 that started the whole comeback. Or, "Hey, Big Poppy, why don't you come give a motivational speech to the Yankees?" It's like your biggest rival and the biggest flop in postseason history, the biggest comeback in postseason history, depending on how you want to look at it. But it is literally the event that ended the Yankees' dominance after they had gone to the World Series for 5 of the 6 previous years, and of course, winning the 3 straight in the late 90s and 2000. And if they finish off the Red Sox in 2004, there's no doubt in my mind that they end up beating the Cardinals. But instead, they've only won 1 World Series since then. And in the meantime, the Red Sox have 4 in that same time. And you're showing those highlights to the current Yankees. All right.
The world is a better place every year the Yankees don't win a World Series.
It is. It is. That would actually stymies. Was it George Costanza? Is that his new with the Yankees?
That's funny.
Could be. Could be. All right. Well, that's going to do it for tonight. Appreciate you stopping by tonight, Jesse. Great stuff. You had your stats all broken down as usual. You'll be back on Thursday, and we'll have a little keys to Syracuse victory on Thursday, right?
Yeah, we'll get into Syracuse's kind of tendencies offensively and defensively, and what Notre Dame needs to do to really, take it to Syracuse. I think this is a great matchup. Notre Dame's actually favored right now, which is kind of crazy, but we'll see. I think it just depends on, do we get Stanford Notre Dame or do we get North Carolina Notre Dame? And that's really going to be the theme for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
I just want to identify, defensively ways Notre Dame can attack them.
All right. Sounds good. We'll be doing that on Thursday. Vince will be back tomorrow. We've got the mailbag show, so bring your mail tomorrow. Jess, I'll talk to you later this week. Thanks for joining in. Hit the like button on your way out if you would. IB Nation Sports Talk.